Not that long ago, this year's Steam Nextfest took place where we could download a bunch of demos for free for upcoming games. And when I say a bunch, I mean there were somewhere around 500 billion demos available. In other words, more than any mere mortal could possibly have time to try. So with that in mind, I thought I'd share my impressions of the 4 demos that I put enough time into to get a feel for the game. So here's what I thought of them and why I did or didn't put them on my wishlist. Voidwrought is a side-scrolling Metroidvania. If you've played one of these, I don't need to describe this game any further. You make your way through the map, fight enemies, acquire new abilities over time that will help you reach areas or get past obstacles that you couldn't without them. The setting is some weird city that is, if I understood the story correctly, buried under ice, but once every century that ice thaws, and the progenitors of the world, some old gods, beckon people to follow their ambition down to them. For some reason. It's a bit fuzzy. You get more of the story by interacting with these things. On top of unlocking your main abilities that'll help you progress in the world, you can spend ichor that enemies drop at this vendor to buy active and passive abilities. I had fun with the demo. At first, the combat felt kinda shallow. It got a bit more interesting over time, but it's evident that the demo takes place in the tutorial area of the game. Some enemies you just hit, some you hit as they come flying at you, some will shoot stuff, some will spawn over or beside you, which requires you to use the dash or the jump at the right time to evade them. They're there to teach you a mechanic. After a while though, I faced this guy, which was the first fight where I died, and where I felt like I needed to use all of my abilities in order to win. Which I did, I promise, I just didn't manage to record it. And when I did, it turned out the demo was over, which kinda makes sense. The tutorial boss tests if you grasped all of the basic mechanics. But this fight definitely made me leave the game wanting more. I'm reluctant to say this because it'll sound like I don't like the game, but it's kind of a poor man's Ori. The movement isn't as flowy as in Ori, the combat isn't super exciting, which it isn't always in Ori either, but that's balanced out by some of the best platforming I've played with really interesting traversal mechanics. Here the platforming is about as interesting as the combat, which isn't bad. Again, the demo seems to be pretty much the tutorial, so it's only fair to expect that the mechanics will get more interesting over time. Considering the amount of active and passive abilities I could choose between already, there seems to be some depth to the gameplay here. And saying that this game is a poor man's Ori, well, of course it is. Ori has a big team that's backed by Microsoft. From what I can tell, this is the first game by Powersnake, a studio with like 3 people in it. Like I said, I left the game feeling like I just got to the good stuff and wanted to play more of it, so an easy wishlist for me. So Enotria is another game with a descriptor that says it all. It's a Souls-like. And it has everything you'd expect from one. The souls, the rolls, the Bloodborne dodge, which is nice, the Sekiro jump, the bonfires, the Estus flasks, the enemies that jump out from a corner, the edges you can fall to your death from, items that you pick up that you have absolutely no idea what they do, this guy, and big boss fights. So what does Enotria offer that's new? Well, pretty much this mask mechanic. Here we're not maidenless, we're maskless, and as we fight our way through the game, we'll unlock different masks that are basically loadouts of weapons and abilities, along with stats tied to each specific mask. Like this bunny mask, I think I deal more magic damage with this one, while with this one I have way more HP. And that's about it. It's also very Italian. It has this old Italian theater theme and the game looks nice. I saw a trailer for this and was very excited, and having played this demo, that excitement is gone. I dislike the feel of the movement. It feels unresponsive at times, and I especially don't enjoy the dodging. Which is weird considering Bloodborne is my favorite From Software game, and the sidestep dodging instead of the rolling is a huge part of that. The combat in Bloodborne feels so quick and cool, just one little step to the side and ha, you missed. In Enotria it feels like the dodge direction is too focused on my position relative to my opponent rather than the direction I hold the analog stick in. It's kinda hard to explain, but if I dodge left once and then instantly dodge left again, the camera angle will have shifted to focus my opponent, and now I dodge in another direction than I initially wanted. Like I said, it's hard to put into words because technically this is what happens in Bloodborne 2, right? Or any From Software game for that matter. You target your enemy and then you're always facing it, and that dictates what's left and what's right. But in Enotria, it just feels, I don't know, different, less smooth somehow. If I were to exaggerate, it's like in Bloodborne, if I dash left twice, I'll move in somewhat of a circle around my opponent to the left. Whereas in Enotria, I make one dash straight to the left and then I make like a 90-degree turn to what was forward when I started going left, but is now the new left. It's not really that bad, but it kind of feels like that when you play it. Also, everywhere you go feels really narrow, which means I constantly dodge into stuff and get stuck there. Both of these things made the most reliable way to dodge be straight backwards, which completely defeats the purpose of a Bloodborne sidestep. It's like a move in a way that looks like Bloodborne, but the gameplay becomes really passive and evasive like Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 before you figure out how to get good at it. I just said that Voidwrought was a poor man's Ori, but again, not necessarily in a bad way. It's just smaller in scope, but it does its thing well. Enotria is just like a Souls-like that plays worse than the From Software games. And I'm sorry, but you can't take a worse version of something and just put a pretty mask on it. To my surprise, I did not wishlist Enotria. So, Tactical Breach Wizards is a tactical game about wizards who breach. Basically, you're a SWAT team, but you're wizards. The gameplay is turn-based and the objective is to take out all the opponents in the room before you can move on to the next one. Different wizards on your team have different abilities, and as you progress, you can unlock new and upgrade your current abilities. Between each mission, you get a piece of story where your characters interact and you get to make some dialogue choices. The story, the characters, and their dialogues are all A+ so far. Aside from the fact that they're wizards, nothing feels new. You read these dialogues and you feel like you're in every action movie you've ever seen, and it's fantastic. You've got the young struggling PI that meets the old rundown retired guy who's past his prime but he's still got it, and you're chasing the ex-comrade who everyone thought was dead but now they're back and they've gone rogue and are now working for the bad guys. Oh my god. It's Mission Impossible 1 meets GoldenEye meets Enemy of the State, but they're wizards. Sorry, sometimes I forget that I'm almost 40 years old. Think Mission Impossible 12 meets Jason Bourne meets John Wick, but they're wizards. No, that's not good. So far, the gameplay has been a bit samey. I look forward to trying more of the game and seeing more mechanics open up. I also haven't run into an encounter where failure seems like a possible outcome, so hopefully the difficulty goes up a bit as well as you get further into the game. However, thus far, the story and character interactions have been so much fun that the fact that the combat phases haven't been challenging hasn't been a problem. As soon as they're done, I get to enjoy more of these incredible dialogues. As far as I can tell, this is the first game by the studio Suspicious Development Inc., who are also publishers of the game. I've loved pretty much every second of the demo and I can't wait to play more of it once the full game is out. I wishlisted. Okay, so this fourth and final demo that I tried is without a doubt my favorite. Mirthwood is a medieval Stardew Valley-like cozy game.
The embers of war burn.
Did I mention medieval? Mirthwood begins with a character creator where you choose how you look, where you're from, and what your profession is. Both your origin and your profession will grant you one positive and one negative effect. After that, you find yourself in your hometown that has been invaded. In order to escape the war, you get on a boat that drops you off in the free lands where a mysterious figure gives you an old abandoned farm where you can sleep, gather materials, craft, cook and grow crops. It's very reminiscent of Stardew Valley. So you have your farm, and nearby you have a village where you can trade goods and interact with the townspeople. More Stardew Valley. The interactions though function similarly to The Sims. You can't hear or read exactly what you or the other person say. Instead, you pick between categories like chat, jest, or gossip, and then within those categories you have more choices. Depending on the person and the mood they're in, they'll react differently to what you pick. They can also react to what you're wearing and if you're carrying a weapon. The town has an economy. You can see how the city coffers are doing, the tax rate, the goods that are in supply and demand, and trade relations to other places. On top of all of this, there are RPG elements. You level skills by performing them, and as you progress, you unlock these cards with different attributes that you can equip. And you can get quests at notice boards or in the inn. The demo lets you play in a restricted area, and it ends after 5 days, so you don't get to see all that much, but you get a taste for a lot of things, and I got the feeling that there could be a lot of depth to some of these things that I tried. And if there is, I think this is a game I could have a lot of fun with for a very long time. On top of all this, I just love the way it looks and sounds. It's really charming, but it still has that darkness at times that you'd expect from a game in a medieval setting. This was an easy wishlist for me, and like I said, this is the game I'm looking forward to the most. I hope this video helped you get a feeling for whether these games could be something for you and deserve a spot on your wishlist. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll watch the next one too.